Good afternoon, Good Shepherd. It's Wednesday, November 4th, and this is my midweek moment. And this has been a trying midweek moment to get done. I'll say more about that in a few minutes. But I learned a new word this morning reading the paper. Maybe some of you saw this on the opinion page in the Denver Post. The article's title was Feeling Disoriented by the Election. It's called Zozobra. Zozobra. And I thought it was a really helpful article to help describe some of the things that we have been feeling. It starts out by saying, ever had the feeling that you can't make sense of what's happening? One moment everything seems normal. Then suddenly the frame shifts to reveal a world on fire, struggling with pandemic, recession, climate change, and political upheaval. That's Zozobra, the peculiar form of anxiety that comes from being unable to settle into a single point of view, leaving you with questions like, is it a lovely autumn day or an alarming moment of converging historical catastrophes? What makes Zozobra so difficult to address, the authors continue, is that its source is intangible. It is a soul sickness, not caused by any personal failing, nor by any of the particular events that we can point to. Instead, it comes from cracks in the frameworks of meaning that we rely on to make sense of the world. A shared understanding of what is real and who is trustworthy, what risks we face and how to meet them, what basic decency requires of us, and what ideals our nation aspires to. And I thought that it was really a profound article. There's more, but I thought it was a really profound article, and I thought I'd start off by talking about that, because I think that what they're talking about here is something that we've all been sensing for some months, certainly, and it's just been increasing over the last few months and weeks. And we are feeling very disoriented. Are we going to meet in person? Are we not going to meet in person? What's going on politically, all those kinds of things. It's wearing us down. It's making us tired. It's making us depressed. It's something that we are all experiencing. And it's just really a soul sickness, as the authors point out. And I'm glad there's a word for it, and that people are starting to study it. And people have been actually for quite some time, but this is certainly the first I've come across it. And so I offer it to you as a point of conversation. And in terms of that point of conversation, the authors end by saying that it's not necessarily a bad thing, although we experience that way. They say it can be a good thing. And one of the folks that they quote writes, or they quote him saying, is this person, for his part, suggests that Zozobra actually unifies people in a common human condition. Many prefer to hide their suffering behind a happy facade or channel it into anger and blame. But this author insists that honest conversation about shared suffering is an opportunity to come together. Talking about the Zozobra provides something to commune over, something on which to base a love for one another, or at least sympathy. And so again, I offer that for us to think about, to work with, and suggest that when we get together, whether it's on the phone or a good socially distanced coffee, or in small groups or something like that, we acknowledge to one another that we are feeling Zozobra, that we are feeling tired, that we are feeling depressed, that all of this stuff that these last few months have brought up in us is real, and not something to be swept under the rug or brushed off. Oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm dealing. I'm as guilty of that as anyone, certainly. But I think that the more we can share with one another, that's Christian community, the more that we can do that, the better we'll all be coming out of it. Now, why is there a coyote over my right shoulder? I was thinking one of the ways that I deal with things like Zozobra is to go outside. I've mentioned this before, and so I thought I would walk into the park, into Cherry Creek State Park. It's just half a mile from my house. So I got on the trail and started walking down the trail, and right in the middle of the trail, just a little bit further down, was this coyote. I stood there for a while, waiting for him to move on. Decided that he wasn't going to do that. So I retraced my steps. I knew a particular bench I wanted to sit in, and I was going to show you a panorama of Cherry Creek State Park. And so I got to the bench and sat down and started recording this midweek moment. And lo and behold, about this point in the recording, I got it stopped, and I got this message: phone storage for photos is full. So I had to shut it off and come home and record it again. So that's why the coyote, and that is Cherry Creek State Park, just right near Cherry Creek High School. Speaking of Cherry Creek High School, we as parents of a high school student have been sort of forewarned to expect news coming from the superintendent tomorrow that the Cherry Creek School District will go to remote learning only. They've been on a hybrid system because of the increases in COVID cases in Arapahoe County. That increase has certainly been noticed by the Office of the Bishop. And while we're all sort of waiting, Canon Carl Andrews thinks that we will probably hear sometime in the not too distant future that the suggestion will come down, whether it's statewide or just metropolitan Denver goes back to stay at home. The COVID cases have really, really ramped up. We're close to 9% in Arapahoe County. We have had, many of you may have already heard, a couple of COVID cases in our congregation. One was Emma Blackburn. She contracted this at college in Kansas, so that wasn't as immediate to us, but just last week, David McClary has tested positive and now is quarantining in his basement. COVID has really come home now for some of us in ways that it hadn't before. And so because of the increase in COVID cases, through conversation with Canon Andrews and then also with the wardens, I have decided that we will suspend in-person worship for the time being until the color comes down from red down into something closer to green on all those thermometers. That it's not safe for our folks, not just for the people who are attending, but also the people who are setting up and staffing those services. So we will not be meeting in person, either outdoors or indoors, for the foreseeable future. What we will start taking under consideration is whether or not we gather 2 or 3 or 4 people, enough to make a Eucharist valid, to celebrate the Eucharist and make drive-by communion more available. But we'll start those conversations pretty quickly, but it will not be happening this Sunday. So I wanted to let you know that, yet again, the shifting sands upon which we stand are shifting and continue to do so. We are a long ways away from being over COVID, and we need to, as we keep thinking and talking about, we need to be nimble, and we are trying that. That's yet one more thing that makes us tired. So this will give us a little bit of respite from trying to figure out what the weather is going to do and whether we can meet outside or inside. We will just not meet until we can meet inside safely. That will be the most prudent thing to do, and the thing that we'll be able to do the soonest, given the onslaught of winter. Tough times. Share your frustration with each other. Share it with me. And I will share it with you. It is hard, but we will get through this together. And maybe we can get out and see that coyote together sometime soon. Look forward to seeing you on Zoom or in other meeting arrangements, but unfortunately not in person. Blessings, dear friends.